Elias Verdun woke with a sharp gasp, as if someone had pulled him up from deep water. His eyes opened to a soft ceiling light glowing a warm gold. The air smelled faintly of herbal tea, something calming, something he did not drink himself. His heart beat fast, confused, and restless inside his chest. For a moment, he did not know where he was. He pushed himself up on his elbows. The blanket that covered him was not his blanket. The room was not his room. The bed beneath him was softer than his own narrow mattress, back in his small orbital apartment. A quiet hum filled the air, the steady vibration of an oxygen circulator, but not the kind used in his living block. His mind panicked for 1 second, before the door beside him slid open. Lyra Sorrel stepped inside. She was his neighbor, a calm, thoughtful woman with silver-streaked hair tied loosely behind her head. She always carried herself as if she knew a little more than she ever said. Today, her eyes were soft with concern. "You're awake," she whispered. Her voice was gentle, but it carried a note of relief. "I'm glad. You had a rough night." Elias blinked at her, trying to process everything. "Lyra, why am I here? What happened?" She walked to a chair beside the bed and sat down, keeping her movements slow, as if she didn't want to startle him. "You cried in your sleep," she said quietly. "Pretty badly, but you're safe here now." Elias stared at her. The words felt unreal. He had no memory of crying, no memory of even going to her home. "I don't understand," he murmured. "I went to sleep in my own bed. I remember checking my door. I remember turning off the lights. Then, nothing." Lyra nodded. "You were found in the hallway outside the residential wing. You were shaking and whispering things. You didn't recognize anyone. I brought you inside because you kept saying someone was coming." A cold chill ran through him. "Someone was coming?" he repeated. "You didn't say," she replied, "but you looked terrified." He tried to think. He tried to chase any broken memory, any small piece of what might have happened. All he found was a heavy blank space, like a wiped file. He rubbed his face with both hands. "Lyra, what time is it?" "Already mid-morning." She touched the small wall panel and dimmed the lights so they were gentler. "You slept for nearly 12 hours. 12?" He looked at her in disbelief. He never slept more than 6. He didn't have the kind of job that allowed long rest. "That's impossible. That's impossible. That's impossible." "It's not impossible," she answered calmly. "You were exhausted. And scared." She paused. "Elias, do you remember anything? Even a dream?" He hesitated. There was something, a shadow, a noise, a cold whisper, but it was like trying to look at something through fog. Every time he reached for the memory, it slipped away. "I remember. Darkness," he said slowly. "But not normal darkness. Something cold. Something alive in it." He shook his head. "It sounds ridiculous." "Not ridiculous," Lyra said with surprising seriousness. He frowned. "What do you mean?" She stood up and walked to her small kitchen unit. She began preparing tea, speaking while she moved. "You're not the only one who had a strange night," she said. "Half the floor reported nightmares. Some people screamed, some fainted. A few walked in their sleep." She brought him a warm cup and sat again. And all of them described the same feeling, something watching them in the dark. Elias's skin prickled. "The Habitat Authority thinks it's stress," she continued. "They're giving out short reports saying everything is fine. But I don't think they know what's happening." Elias took a slow sip of tea. It helped a little. His breathing steadied. "Lyra," he said, "why did you bring me here? You could have called security. They would have taken care of me." "I know," she said quietly. "But you looked lost and afraid. I couldn't just leave you. Besides, security was already overwhelmed with calls. People all over the station were panicking. He tried to picture it, neighbors shouting, alarms echoing down the metal corridors, medical bots rushing around campus. It didn't feel real. He looked at Lyra again. Did you have nightmares too? A strange silence settled in the room. Lyra lowered her eyes. Yes, I did. What did you see? She exhaled slowly. A sound. Not a vision, not an image. A sound that wasn't really a sound. Like a message trying to form, but failing. It felt like someone whispering from far away. Too far to understand. Elias felt his pulse quicken again. That's what I felt, he said. I think. Something whispering. I thought I imagined it. No. Her voice was firm. You didn't imagine it. They both fell quiet. The hum of the oxygen circulator grew louder in the silence. After a moment, Elias placed the empty teacup aside. Lyra, he said slowly, why do you sound so sure? You're not acting like someone who thinks this is a dream. She studied him for a long moment. Then she said something he did not expect. Because I ran a scan. A scan? Elias blinked, confused. On me? Yes, you were unconscious, and you were shaking. I wanted to make sure you weren't hurt. And? Lyra tapped her wrist console. A small projection glowed above it, a simplified brainwave map. Elias recognized normal neural patterns from basic health training. But there was something else layered over the display. A repeating curve of sharp peaks and dips. This, Lyra said, pointing, is not normal. Elias leaned forward. What is it? I don't know, she admitted. But it's identical to the scans of 4 other residents who reported nightmares. I checked the internal archive database. This pattern doesn't match any known stress reaction or disorder. Elias stared at the glowing pattern. The more he looked, the more familiar it felt, like he had seen it in his dream, or heard it. It looks like a signal, he whispered. Lyra nodded slowly. That's exactly what I thought. A signal. From where? From who? Before he could ask, the wall console chimed. A holographic alert flashed. Station advisory residents may experience heightened stress responses. Remain calm. Report unusual symptoms. All systems functional. Lyra rolled her eyes. Yes, all systems functional, except the people who live here. Elias rubbed his temples. This doesn't make sense. How can everyone have the same dream? How can we all hear the same whisper? Because it wasn't a dream, Lyra said softly. At least, not only a dream. He looked at her sharply. Lyra hesitated, choosing her words carefully. I think something tried to communicate. And human minds reacted. That sounds impossible. Everything sounds impossible until it happens, she replied calmly. Remember when our station detected the first dark matter ripple? No one believed that either. Elias stood, pacing the room. The floor was cool beneath his feet. He felt restless energy inside him, like something inside his brain was still vibrating. Lyra, if this is real, if something is trying to reach us, why now? Why us? I don't know, she admitted. But I think you may know more than you realize. I don't, Elias insisted. I can't remember anything. Maybe not yet, she said. But last night, before you fell asleep again, you said something. He turned to her. What did I say? Lyra spoke the words slowly, carefully, as if repeating something dangerous. You said, it's coming through the walls. A cold shiver shot through Elias. He took a step back. Through the walls of what? Lyra shook her head. You didn't explain. You just kept repeating it. Lyra. Elias pressed his hand to the wall. The surface felt solid, but suddenly he felt as if something beyond it was pulsing, waiting, pressing against reality. Lyra, he said, voice low, what do you think is happening to us? She met his eyes and answered honestly. I think this is only the beginning. Elias swallowed hard. The feeling returned, the whisper, the darkness, the sense of something immense reaching toward him. He felt the room tilt slightly. He didn't know what was coming. But he knew one thing. It wasn't human. And it wasn't done with him yet. The corridor outside Lyra's apartment was unusually quiet. People walked past with tired eyes, some rubbing their temples, others whispering with worried voices. Elias watched them through the doorway as he got ready to leave. He felt weaker than usual, but clearer too, as if something inside him had finally stopped spinning. Lyra stood beside him, arms folded, expression sharp with thought. You don't have to go anywhere today, she said. You can rest here. It's safer. Elias shook his head. If something strange is happening, I need to see it myself. Staying in one room won't help. Lyra didn't argue this time. She simply nodded and handed him a small, wrist-link device, modified with her own settings. If you feel dizzy or hear anything strange, she said, press the top button. It will alert me and record the data. Elias strapped it on. Feels like I'm turning into a science project. Lyra almost smiled. Trust me, if you were a science project, I'd be taking blood samples. He laughed softly. It helped calm the nervous feeling inside his chest. Then, the two stepped out into the corridor. For a moment, everything seemed normal. The metal walkway vibrated with the steady movement of air recyclers. The large glass windows showed the gentle curve of nearby stars. But as they walked, Elias noticed something small and unsettling. Nearly everyone they passed looked distracted, as if their minds were half somewhere else. A man stood with his hand on the wall, breathing slowly. A child clung tightly to her mother, eyes wide with fear. Even the service drones floated slower than usual, scanning people with extra sensors. Elias whispered, "It feels like the whole station didn't sleep." Lyra nodded. Because it didn't. They reached the lift and rode down to the research level. Lyra led him into a quiet lab room filled with holographic screens and soft lights. She locked the door behind them. Before we do anything else, she said, I want to run another scan. After last night, your neural pattern might have changed. Elias hesitated. Lyra, what if we're just making ourselves scared? Maybe all of this really is just stress. She walked up to him and looked him directly in the eyes. Stress doesn't create identical quantum signatures in multiple people, she said. This is not a normal event, Elias. Trust your instincts. Something is wrong. Her serious tone silenced him. Finally, he sighed and sat on the examination chair. Lyra lowered a scanner over his head. Soft blue lights flashed. For a few seconds, everything seemed quiet. Then the screen lit up with a sharp, repeated pulse, the same strange pattern Lyra had shown him earlier. Except this time, it was stronger. Lyra froze. This is impossible. Elias sat up quickly. What? What happened? What happened? The pattern is growing, Lyra whispered. It's almost like something is building inside your brainwaves. He felt a cold weight in his stomach. Building what? I don't know. She stared at the screen. But it isn't random. It looks like language. Elias felt dizzy. Language. A message. Something was speaking or trying to through him. Suddenly, the lights flickered. Elias flinched, gripping the side of the chair. The room seemed to tilt for a brief moment. Did you see that? He asked. Lyra was already tapping her console. Yes, the station lights dropped by 2%. Power fluctuation. Another flicker hit the room. Stronger this time. This time, Elias didn't only feel it, he heard something with it. A whisper. Low, cold, and distant. A sound without a source. A message without words. He grabbed his head. Lyra, something's trying to... Lyra rushed to him, steadying him. Elias, focus on my voice. What did you hear? He opened his eyes. They were trembling. Not words. A warning. But I don't understand it. Lyra's face tightened with concern. You're not the only one. Reports are coming in from across the station. People are hearing strange noises. Some are collapsing. Collapsing, he repeated. From what? Our minds, Lyra said quietly, are not built for whatever this signal is. She quickly adjusted another device and took a sample of Elias's brainwave activity. A new graph appeared on the screen, and this one showed rapid spikes, like someone tapping on the inside of his skull. Lyra whispered, It's accelerating. Just then, the lab's door panel chimed. Dr. Sorrell, a voice called from outside. Research security. Requires immediate access. Open this door. Lyra's expression hardened. They tracked the scan. Elias felt panic rise inside him. Because the authority doesn't want independent research, Lyra whispered. They want control. She gestured for him to stay silent and unlocked the door only halfway. Two officers stood outside, wearing dark uniforms and carrying data tablets. Dr. Sorrell, the taller officer said, We've been informed that you conducted unauthorized neurological testing. We need to inspect your equipment. Lyra forced a polite smile. This is a medical follow-up. He had a health emergency last night. Regardless, the officer replied. Send the scan data to the Central Archive. Immediately. Lyra hesitated. Elias saw fear in her eyes, not fear for herself, but for him. Of course, she lied. Give me 1 minute. She closed the door. Then she grabbed Elias by the wrist. We can't let them take your scan, she whispered urgently. If they see how strong the signal is inside your mind, they'll quarantine you. Quarantine me? Elias whispered back. Like, I'm infected? They won't understand what's happening, Lyra said quickly. They'll just try to lock you away before they even know what it means. Docs. He felt the blood drain from his face. What do we do? Lyra worked fast, wiping the recent scan data from her console but secretly saving a copy to her personal drive. Then she sent a harmless dummy file to the Central Archive. The door chimed again, more aggressively. Dr. Sorrell, the officer called. We need access now. Lyra breathed out slowly and opened the door. The officers scanned her console, seemed satisfied, and left without another word. When the door sealed again, Lyra turned to Elias with determined eyes. We don't have much time, she said. We need help, and not from the authority. Elias nodded, still shaken. From who? From others like you, she answered. Others who had the dreams. Before Elias could respond, the wrist-link device on his arm vibrated sharply. He looked down. Alert. Anomalous brainwave surge, detected multiple sources. Lyra's eyes widened. It's spreading faster. They left the lab immediately and hurried through the station corridors. More people were gathered now, whispering to one another. Some pressed their hands to their temples. Others leaned against walls. A man stumbled past them, dizzy, holding onto a railing. Lyra, Elias said. I know, she said. Which is why we need to get to the lower research wing. There's a private room there, where we can meet some people. People? Elias asked. You already talked to them? I sent a message this morning, she replied. Anyone who experienced the nightmare was invited. They descended several levels until they reached a quiet corridor. Lyra opened a door with her personal access code. Inside, the room was dim and small, with chairs arranged in a circle. 5 people were waiting. A woman in a medical uniform, a young technician with red hair, a middle-aged man wearing a repair vest, an elderly woman with a trembling hand, and a student, barely older than 20. All of them looked tired. All of them looked frightened. Lyra guided Elias inside. "Everyone," she said softly. "This is Elias. His pattern is the strongest so far." Elias felt awkward as everyone stared at him. He raised a hand weakly. The red-haired technician spoke first. "Did you hear it too? The whisper? The cold feeling?" Elias nodded slowly. "Yes, and it's getting louder." The elderly woman shook her head. "Louder? Yes. I thought it was just in my mind. But now, it feels like someone is touching my thoughts." The student leaned forward, voice trembling. "What if it's not trying to hurt us? What if it's asking for help? What if it's—" Lyra stepped into the center. "That is what we need to understand. But we can't rely on the authorities' systems. They're blind to this. Only human minds can detect it." A silence fell over the room. Elias swallowed hard. "Lyra, why me? Why is the signal stronger in my mind?" Lyra didn't answer right away. She looked at him with a mix of fear and curiosity. Finally, she said, "Because, Elias, I think you are the primary receiver." Elias froze. Primary receiver. The one the message focused on. He felt his breath catch. "Why me?" Lyra stepped closer, voice quiet but steady. "Because something out there chose you." Elias felt the room dim for a moment. He wasn't just a victim. He wasn't just someone with nightmares. Some intelligence was reaching for him. And whatever it wasn't finished. Not even close. The small meeting room felt heavier than before, as if the air itself carried the weight of something unseen. Elias sat in the circle with the 5 other residents, while Lyra stood near a holographic display, preparing a projection. The elderly woman rubbed her trembling hands together. "Doctor, if Elias is the primary receiver, what does that mean for the rest of us?" Lyra turned on the projector. A soft blue sphere appeared in the air. "It means the message reached all of you," she said. "But it is strongest inside Elias. His brain is reacting in ways I've never seen." Elias watched the floating sphere. It pulsed, dimmed, then pulsed again in the same rhythm that kept echoing inside his mind. Every time the hologram brightened, his heartbeat felt connected to it. The technician with red hair frowned. "So it is a signal. From somewhere. And intelligent," Lyra added. "Very intelligent." A cold silence filled the room. The middle-aged repair worker leaned forward. "Doctor, you said the authority is blind to it. Why? How can humans hear something the machines don't?" "Ever." Lyra tapped the projection, shifting to another graph, a sharp, jagged pattern. Elias recognized it instantly from his earlier scans. "Because this signal," Lyra explained, "exists partly outside normal sensory range. Automated systems detect physical frequencies only, but this pattern interacts with emotional and memory centers in the brain. Our minds feel it before our machines read it." Elias swallowed. "So humans are the antenna." "Yes," Lyra said softly. "And right now, we are the only ones listening." The student stared at Elias. "Do you hear anything now?" Elias hesitated. He did. A soft pulse. A cold whisper. Not clear words, more like a pressure forming at the back of his thoughts. Not painful, but impossible to ignore. "I hear something," he admitted. Lyra nodded calmly. "It will grow stronger. But we must understand the message before it overwhelms the station." The medical worker raised a hand. "Doctor, you said this is intelligent contact. How do we know it isn't an attack?" "Foe." Lyra paused. "We don't." Elias felt a chill run through him. "But," Lyra continued, "the patterns don't resemble harmful signals. No neural damage, No dangerous spikes. Instead, it looks like communication. Urgent communication. The group exchanged anxious looks. The elderly woman whispered, "Urgent. Because, why?" The question hung in the air, unanswered. Finally, Lyra expanded the hologram to show a star map. The group leaned closer. "This," Lyra said, pointing, "is our system's outer region. And here," she zoomed in, "is what the station's deep sensors recorded last night. This," quote, Lyra. So, Lyra. Sensors. Lyra. Sensors. A faint distortion appeared near the map's edge, a curved shape, like space itself bending. Elias stared. "What is that?" "A gravitational anomaly," Lyra said. "Too small to classify yet, but unusual. Our main AI systems didn't flag it." She turned to Elias. "But the signal in your mind appeared at the exact same time." The technician's eyes widened. "So someone out there saw the anomaly before we did, and tried to warn us?" Lyra nodded. "That is my theory." The repair worker shook his head. "Why warn us? Why not contact our main communication system?" "People. Maybe they couldn't," Lyra said. "Maybe their technology doesn't match ours. Maybe this was their only way. But sending messages into human dreams?" The student whispered. "How?" Lyra gave a small, sad smile. "The universe is older and stranger than we imagine." In quote. Elias leaned back, overwhelmed. The room felt smaller, like the walls were closing in. His head pulsed with the sensation of something brushing against his mind, a presence trying to push a message through. Suddenly, his wrist device vibrated sharply. Lyra rushed to his side. "Elias, what's happening?" He pressed his palms to his temples. "It's getting stronger." The whisper. "It's forming. Something." Lyra grabbed a small scanner and pointed it at his forehead. The hologram above her console flashed rapidly. "Brainwave surge," she exclaimed. "Everyone step back." The group moved away as Elias's vision blurred. He felt like he was standing on the edge of a cliff inside his own mind. A cold wind pushed at him. Except there was no wind in the room. Then, he heard it. A sound. A clear, sharp sound. Not in his ears, but inside his thoughts. It was a symbol. A warning. A picture made of emotion rather than lines. He gasped and clutched the armrest of his chair. "Elias," Lyra called. "Can you hear me?" He opened his eyes. "I saw something," he whispered. "A star, breaking apart, and something falling toward us." The room fell dead silent. Lyra slowly lowered the scanner. Whatever sent that message, they experienced something catastrophic. The medical worker covered her mouth. "Yes," Lyra said. "And if the energy wave from that star collapses moving toward our system, we're in danger," the technician finished. The repair worker stood. "Then we have to tell the authority." Lyra shook her head quickly. "They won't believe us. They'll shut everything down and take us in for medical observation." "We can't do nothing," the technician shouted. "We won't," Lyra replied. "But we must act carefully." Elias breathed deeply, trying to steady his pounding heart. She turned to him with determined eyes. "Elias, your mind can interpret what the machines cannot. If we want to understand the full message, we need something stronger." She stepped to her console and opened a locked storage panel. Inside was a small device with smooth metal edges and glowing threads along its sides. "This," she said softly, "is a neural interface, normally used for advanced simulations. But I've modified it." Elias stared at it. "Modified how?" "I connected human neural input with our main analysis AI. It can translate emotional patterns into language patterns." "Lyra," the medical worker said nervously, That device isn't approved. I know, Lyra replied. And that's why I hid it. She turned back to Elias. With this device, she said, you can speak the alien signal into a form our system understands. He swallowed hard. You want me to connect my mind? To that? I won't force you, Lyra said gently. But this may be the only way to understand the warning. Elias stared at the device. His pulse raced, his hands felt cold, but deep inside, he knew something. Whatever had reached out to him, it wasn't finished speaking. Slowly, he nodded. I'll do it. Lyra exhaled with relief. She brought the device forward and attached it carefully to the back of Elias's neck. The cold metal made him shiver. When it activates, she warned, you'll feel pressure, maybe fear. Don't fight it. Let the message flow. Elias closed his eyes. Okay, he whispered. I'm ready. Lyra activated the device. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a surge of sensation rushed through Elias's mind like a wave of cold fire. The room faded. The voices faded. He felt suspended in empty space. Darkness stretched in all directions. Then, something flickered. A star bright, burning, trembling. He saw it collapse inward, like a dying heartbeat. Then, a shock wave exploded outward, a ripple bending through space, warping reality. Elias's pulse raced, his breath hitched. Then he heard the whisper again, but this time, it was loud, urgent, shaped like a word made of sorrow and warning. Run. Elias gasped and ripped the device off his neck. Lyra caught him before he fell. What did you see? She demanded. Elias looked around at the frightened faces. His voice trembled. It wasn't just a warning, he said. The group leaned closer. Elias swallowed hard. It was a countdown. The room froze after Elias spoke those words. A countdown. No one moved. No one breathed. Finally, the technician whispered, voice shaking. A countdown. To what? Elias looked up slowly, still pale. To the arrival of the shockwave, the one from the collapsing star. Lyra's face hardened. Then we don't have time. We need to know when it reaches us. The repair worker ran a hand through his hair. We're only a civilian habitat. We can't survive a stellar shockwave. We don't even have long-range shields. No. No. Lyra didn't look shaken. Instead, she stood straighter. Then we improvise. Humans always improvise. Machines follow rules. We don't. The group stared at her with a fragile hope. Elias steadied himself. His head buzzed softly, not painfully, just as if the message inside him had settled. He felt more aware, more connected, as if he could sense the distance of the shockwave across the stars. The student cleared her throat quietly. If the signal gave him a countdown, maybe he can still access it. Lyra turned to Elias. Can you? Elias closed his eyes. For a moment, everything was dark again. But the darkness no longer frightened him. It felt like a tunnel, and he simply had to walk through it. He breathed slowly. Seconds passed. Then he whispered, "It's close. Too close." He opened his eyes. "We have less than 30 hours. Fear hit the group all at once. 30 hours, the red-haired technician said. That's nothing. We can't evacuate the entire station in that time. The medical worker cried. We won't, Lyra said firmly. We'll reroute the station. Elias stared at her. Reroute? The entire habitat? That's impossible. Not impossible, Lyra answered. The repair worker gave a small, nervous laugh. We're really doing this, aren't we? We're going to override the AI? We have to, Lyra said. The AI doesn't believe the threat exists. But we do. Elias felt something spark inside him, fear, yes, but also determination. For the first time since the nightmare began, he felt like he could do something. Humans were cornered by the universe before, and they survived by refusing to give up. He stood straighter. "Tell me what to do." Lyra nodded, her face full of trust. "We're going to do this together." The plan. The group moved to the lower research wing, a quiet place filled with unused old equipment. Lyra pulled up a station schematic. "This habitat hangs in orbit by 12 thruster units," she explained. "They adjust our angle, but they can also push us out of alignment if needed." The technician added, "If we tilt the station even by a few degrees, we can reduce the force of the shockwave." "Like turning sideways before a big wind," the elderly woman said softly. "Exactly," Lyra replied. "But the AI won't allow it," Elias said. "It'll override any manual control." "That's where you come in," Lyra said, turning to him. "Your neural pattern can confuse the AI long enough to give us access." Elias blinked. "You want me to distract a superintelligence?" Lyra nodded. "You already helped the AI read the alien signal. Now you'll use that same complexity to keep it busy. For a few seconds, that's all we need." Elias swallowed hard. "I'll try." The student looked around nervously. "If this fails, won't we get punished?" Lyra smiled sadly. "If this fails, we won't live long enough to be punished." No one argued after that. The attempt. 20 hours remained. The group split into roles. Lyra and the technician went to the primary control chamber. The repair worker prepared emergency manual switches in the thruster access tunnels. The medical worker monitored Elias's vitals and kept him steady. The elderly woman acted as lookout to warn them if authority officers approached. Elias sat at the auxiliary panel, the only place where human neural input could interface with the AI. Elias placed his hands on the cold metal surface. "Ready?" Lyra asked. "No," Elias said honestly, "but let's do it." Lyra nodded and activated the neural interface. At once, Elias felt the AI's presence, a massive, emotionless awareness. It had no voice, but he sensed it, analyzing him, scanning his thoughts like light through glass. Lyra whispered, "Now, Elias, push the alien signal toward it. Give it too much to process." Elias focused. The whisper inside his mind stirred the alien warning. The collapsing star. The pulse of fear. He didn't resist it this time. He let the broken images and cold emotions rise to the surface, letting them fill his thoughts. The AI wavered. Elias felt it, the machine's absolute logic struggling to interpret something that wasn't logical at all. "Now," Lyra shouted. "Override thrusters." The technician slammed her hand on the command panel. For a second, nothing happened. Then, warning. Unauthorized manual control. Warning. Navigation alignment shift detected. The AI tried to regain control. Elias pushed harder, focusing on the alien message, letting it swirl through his mind and clash with the AI's cold systems. The medical worker shouted, "Elias, your pulse is rising." "I'm fine," Elias said through clenched teeth. The technician yelled from the control panel, "We have manual control for 5 seconds. Move, move, move." Lyra grabbed the thruster controls. Tilting 15 degrees now. The entire station groaned, metal straining as the massive structure shifted. Elias felt his chest tighten. The AI pushed against him, trying to force him out. Its presence grew hot and sharp, as if it were trying to cut through his thoughts. He shouted in pain. "Elias!" Lyra yelled. "Hold on!" Elias pushed one last time, pouring every memory, every emotion, every human imperfection into the interface. And the AI froze. It didn't understand fear. It didn't understand sorrow. It didn't understand the strange alien warning shaped like a scream. For 3 beautiful seconds, it stopped. Lyra hit the final command. Thrusters realigned. Station orbit shift initiated. Then the AI rebooted, and Elias collapsed to the floor. The wave. The group dragged Elias away from the panel as alarms rang across the station. External anomaly detected. Brace for impact. Lyra held Elias's head in her lap. Stay with us. Please. I'm okay, Elias whispered weakly. What's happening? The repair worker yelled from the corridor. It's here! Everyone ran to the nearest observation window. A ripple of distorted light spread across the stars, a silent wave bending everything it touched. It looked like a crack in reality itself. The shockwave hit the station. The metal walls groaned. Lights flickered. The floor shook like an earthquake in zero gravity. Elias shielded his eyes. The wave passed over them like a great invisible hand. The station trembled, tilted. Then, it stabilized. The elderly woman fell to her knees in relief. It worked. It actually worked. Lyra let out a long breath, tears in her eyes. We caught the wave at an angle. We survived. Elias leaned against the wall, breathing hard. We survived. Because we listened. He felt the whisper inside his mind fade, not vanish, but soften, like a voice smiling from very far away. The alien presence was weak now, fading, but he sensed gratitude. They had listened. They had understood. They had lived. The aftermath. Hours later, the authority demanded answers. They demanded explanations. They demanded to know how the station had survived a cosmic event no one believed was real. People told different stories. Some blamed a sensor error. Some claimed luck. Some whispered about a group of civilians who acted when the machines did nothing. But none of them mentioned Elias. Lyra made sure of that. She stood beside him on the quiet observation deck. Stars shone peacefully outside, as if nothing had happened. You saved us, Lyra said softly. Elias shook his head. We saved each other. We. She smiled. Humans. Elias looked out at the stars at the place where the shockwave had come from. We weren't the only ones fighting to survive, he said. Something out there tried to warn us. They saved us too. Lyra placed a hand on the railing. Do you think they're still alive? Elias listened to the silence inside his mind. No, he whispered. But their last message reached someone. He closed his eyes. And humanity answered.